Frank Red from In the Dungeon in the building with me on D-Lo and Casey. What's up, Frank? How you doing, man?
I'm chilling, my brother, and I thank you once again, man, for another opportunity. And just put it out there. I love Sac. I love, you know what? I'm a bigger fan. I've said it before. I'm a biggest fan of the Sac community and their fans than I am of the team. I support the team, but I love the fans. I mean, when somebody makes you, they made me. You know what I'm saying? So thank you, man, for this opportunity. I appreciate it. And from afar, just watching you and D-Lo do your thing on the regular, I'm so proud of you, and just continued success.
Thank you, man. Much love, man. And the SAC community's buzzing right now, man. We've been talking about it all week nonstop. I'm just been getting everybody's opinions and getting their thoughts about the newest Sacramento King, DeMar DeRozan. And a lot of people are calling it. You've seen a lot of the stuff that's going on here in Sacramento. They're calling it the biggest free agent signing in the history of the Sacramento Kings franchise. Here in Sacramento, and it's hard to argue. It's a short list at the very least. You talking Vlade. You talking, I guess Malik Monk now in hindsight when you signed him, but that's almost about it, man. To get a guy that he's averaging 24 points a game, he's one of the top 2 guards in the league. Is he in his prime right now? No, but he's still like maybe at the tail end of his prime. To say, hey, I believe in what is going on in Sacramento. I'm choosing to be a part of that. That's a big deal, man. That's a real big deal.
I love it. And I would say that he's on par right there with Vlade, because when Vlade came to the Kings, you saw the impact on winning. And DeMar's coming in, and he's going to make the Kings better. But I'm looking at how he impacts Keegan Murray, how he impacts De'Aaron Fox, because those guys have additional levels to get to. And one of the things that I love about DeMar is his history. You know where he came from. You know his come up. This guy has been successful in every stop that he's been in, and he's been paid. He had to transition his game when he went to San Antonio to fit into a system, and he was stellar there. He was an exemplary vet. Went to Chicago, got it done there, and you know what? He's a major step up for the Kings, man. Kings will be in the top 5 in scoring next year.
One of the things that I ask everybody that comes on this weekend, and just how I'm feeling about the situation, is I think the addition of DeMar DeRozan alone is something that elevates this team to being a 50 to 52 win team. Worst case scenario. Worst case. I'm much like you, Frank. I'm a believer in the basketball player that DeMar DeRozan is, the professional that DeMar DeRozan is, the man. I talked a lot this week about the discipline that I've seen from him and the way that he speaks and how he speaks about being a professional. And like you said, that rubbing off on Keegan Murray, on De'Aaron Fox. Not that they necessarily need it, but there's something that they could probably learn from a guy like DeMar DeRozan. And I just think as a whole, it's going to elevate this team, this roster, this franchise. And I'm looking at a team that, like I said, worst case scenario, 50-52 wins.
I totally agree with you. I mean, the Kings are one of the top 4 teams in the West, 5 at the latest. And, they got talent. I mean, they got a nice roster. And a lot of times people put the onus on the coach to elevate the team. Mike Brown has to be that guy. And this is not a hot take, but I think they need to do well. He might be on the hot seat because this is a really, really talented team.
He just signed, Mike.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? I mean, in the NBA, they give you a bunch of money so they don't feel bad when they fire you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that's cold, man.
We have seen that happen before.
You know what I mean? So I hope it don't happen. I'm a Mike Brown guy. But, again, having DeMar lessens Mike's load. He's doing his job, but players listen to players. And what's really important is that the Kings do well in a playoff environment. And I think that's part of why Monty McNair wanted him. Yeah, you're going to get the 20-plus a game, but you're getting the leadership and you're getting the OG experience that these young guys need, man.
Yeah, no, and I like what you say there, though. You got a guy in DeMar DeRozan that, is one less thing for Mike Brown to worry about, like if he has to make a tough decision or if, somebody's not a fan that night of the substitution patterns, as opposed to Mike Brown having to deal with talking to that guy or whatever the case may be. You got a guy like DeMar DeRozan that can put his arm around somebody's shoulder and be like, look, this is what coach is thinking, or even if you don't agree with it right now, this is the way we should handle it. This is the way we need to go about it. It's one less thing, like you said, for Mike Brown and that coaching staff to deal with, because you got a professional like DeMar DeRozan right there in the locker room as is.
Absolutely. And, I mean, we are fans of basketball, but we're adults. We have a eyelid behind the scenes, and we understand it. I mean, yeah, it's fun, but this is a job, and you got to show up every day. And that mentality will not only manifest itself while you're playing basketball, but after your basketball career is over, those characteristics will help you down the road. And DeMar has been exemplary, man. I can't wait to see what he does after basketball, because he has a lot of fans around the NBA. And I love that. I mean, that's why a guy like Kyle Lowry gets signed as a 38-year-old. He got a lot of money, but that's not what it's about. He still wants to play. Coaches trust him. Coaches trust DeMar DeRozan as well.
It's funny you say that, man. I was listening to Austin Rivers speak, and he was speaking like in the context of Harrison Barnes and Tobias Harris was the guy they were talking about. And he was just like, I think about all the time in my career, what would I have done better? And he says just the little things that I could have done that could have prolonged my career. I could have made more money, because to the things that you just spoke about, people would be able to trust me, right? So not that they didn't trust him, but he was talking about it like Harrison and Tobias and how they keep getting contracts. Right. It's because people are like, I know what Harrison's bringing to the table. I can trust that. I can rely on that. And he says like the little things. He was like, if we got practice and my time to shoot is at 10 o'clock, don't get there at 9:45. Get there at 9:15. You know what I'm saying? Like little things like that can end up costing you or making you $50 more million in your career. You know what I mean? It has nothing to do with your points, rebounds, and assists in the game. It's little stuff like that. And a guy like DeMar, he just exemplifies that. Like I'm so impressed with him, Frank, about just his mindset, the way he approaches being a professional. I've really studied that the last week or so, and I'm so impressed by that from him.
Well, I'm a hip hop head, man. So I know the marriage and the relationship between rappers and basketball players. And, I don't know DeMar personally, but I know his affiliations. Mm-hmm. And, he had to come up, and I mean, to come up and evolve into the professional that he is, that has distinguished himself in an exemplary fashion, even for somebody who's not playing basketball, for myself as a fan, it's impressive. When he was in Chicago, Billy Donovan and I are good friends. I didn't talk to Bill about, DeMar, but I'm like, yo, he's helping my boy. Every night that Chicago played, Billy knew he could depend on DeMar. And I respect it. As a ball player myself, the only thing that you have, and you play ball as well, you have your credibility and you have your character for your boys or for your girls if you're playing. And I'm excited about him bringing that type of aura and ambiance to what the Sacramento Kings will be as a team this year, because there's really no more excuses. It's just that extra stuff of professionalism that you need to get this team over the top. And I couldn't think of a more distinguished free agent to bring into the city than DeMar.
Frank Redd, man, in the Dungeon podcast. Just grateful to spend some time with him and talk to him a little bit about what's going on here in Sacramento. We talked about DeMar DeRozan and him coming to the Sacramento Kings. My man, James Ham, Kings Insider, ESPN 1320 Kings Insider, he reported earlier in the week that the Kings may not be done. He's saying Monty McNair is still working the phones. He's still trying to get see what deals are out there to bring guys in. Somebody maybe like a Kyle Kuzma, like a Cam Johnson. I doubt this guy gets moved, but even like a Lauri Markkanen. Do you think the Kings need to make another big move, or should it be more of a smaller move, like a smaller role player to go along with DeMar. But should they go for the gusto right now?
I don't think so. I like what they're doing right now. One of the twins from Kansas. What are the twins? I can't.
Oh, I think it's Markeith.
Yeah. Morris twins. Maybe
Yeah.
one of the Morris twins. You know, they need edge players. They don't need guys who want to come in to get the basketball. This team is going to be one of the top 5 scoring teams in the NBA. You know, so I like their roster. I'm a big Keon Ellis fan. I mean, he came up. He's going to be on the court. You know what he's going to do as a backup player. I would like to see Trey Lyles play with a little more energy because the talent is there. Don't worry about DeMontis. I mean, he's giving you 120% every night. I like this team, and I think that it's progressional. You know, you don't get it done, I mean, in 1 year. I want to see this team win the playoff series, and I think the personnel they have now is enough to do that. So I would look at a small move as opposed to like a bigger move because they have the guys there. I mean, we need Keegan Murray to go from 15.2 to 18.5 this year. I don't want to take the ball out of his hands. I want to put the ball in his hands. So smaller moves as opposed to a larger move would fit me more.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm leaning to. As much as I like guys like Kuzma and I like Cam Johnson and guys like that, one of the things, and I've talked about it all day today, that kind of concerns me about going for a bigger name like that is a lot of people talk about who's going to start and all this other stuff. Well, Frank, I always talk about, I'm thinking about who's finishing. And if you got a guy like Cam Johnson or Kyle Kuzma who's used to finishing, but you've got Fox, DeRozan, Keegan Murray, Sabonis, that's 4 spots. And now who's going to finish between Kuzma, Monk, and Keon? Like that, who knows how that could affect somebody's, their mindset. If Kuzma thought he was coming here to be a starter and he can't even close out games, or you re-sign Malik Monk and he left money on the table to stay here, and now you're not even allowing him to close out games, I would just I'd probably rather stay away from that. And like you said, get a player that understands his role and where he stands on the team, like a Morris twin or a Dorian Finney-Smith. You know, he knows he can come in here, he can help you, but he knows, hey, I'm probably not going to be in that closing 5 or something like that, and everything stays copacetic. That's kind of where I think about when you think about bringing in another big name or something like that.
I totally agree with you. And Finney-Smith is a good name, and the Kings have shown that they take care of players. So, like you said, I mean, players come in with a certain mentality. Sometimes it's, I want to start or I want to finish, but more than anything, they want to keep that money train rolling. And if they are getting towards the end of their contract, or they think they can have a higher profile, then they start to think individually. That's innate. That's a competitive nature that athletes and basketball players and all players have. So if I thought that the Kings' talent level wasn't good enough, I would be like, let's keep looking. But they got one of the best starting 5s in all of basketball.
I agree. Now, speaking of that starting 5, who's in that starting 5? We all know the other 4. The real question seems to be at the shooting guard position, and we talked about that a lot this week. I'm not really tripping either way. Like if it's Monk, that's kind of what I think it should be. But if it's Keon, I'm like you. I love Keon's game. I love what he brings to the table. So if you feel like he should start at the 2 and keep Monk in that 6-man role, that's cool. Let's rock. But I mean, if you were Mike Brown, how would you go about that starting situation? Would it be Monk? Would it be Keon Ellis?
It would be Herter. I mean.
Oh, okay. You're bringing Herter back into the starting role.
Yeah, I mean, if he's going to be on the team, if you're not going to trade him, then you got to get something out of him. Because I watched him a lot last year. I watched his entire career, and he's emotional. Some guys don't live with bad performances. He does, and he gets in a rut. So give him a chance. If the first 5-10 games of the season he's still in that rut, then sit him on the bench. But we've seen him play well. We've seen this guy play good basketball. He sprays the floor, and I would love to see him get another opportunity because I think that there's something there. and he's a streaky guy, and he's an emotional guy. If he's playing well, all of a sudden you have a new piece of the puzzle that you can use. And he certainly spread the floor. I love Monk off the bench because he's streaky. Malik Monk, I mean, by the end of the day, yeah, he's going to finish games, but he's a little streaky. I love his energy off the bench. And Keon Ellis is a guy who can play both positions to me. So I'm not worried about him starting. Yeah. It would be between Monk and Herter. I'm not giving up on Herter. I think at some point in the season, Devin Carter is going to show people why the Kings drafted him. He's a good two-way player. But I want to give Herter a chance, man. I don't want to give up on him.
That's a good point that you make with Herter. Like I think the ship has sailed on him potentially starting here or maybe even being on this team at this point. But I like you. I like Herter. I think there's still a lot of things that he brings to the table that could help Sacramento. I think one of the things that they don't need, but it would help them is a knockdown shooter, somebody to continue to spread the floor. But when you talk about starting him, I understand your logic there because with a guy that is emotional, like Kevin Herter, and could be emotional, you don't know if, all right, we're not starting you, but you're still in the rotation, if you might lose him completely. You know what I'm saying? Because of that. Like, at least, like you say, kind of throw him a bone a little bit and say, hey, we're still starting you. Let's see what we can get out of you. Like you said, give it about 10, 12 games. If it's just not working out, you move on or whatever the case may be. I hadn't thought about that. That's a good idea. Like I said, I think he's probably still on the third on the pecking order for me between, starting at the two guard. I'd go Monk, Keon, and then maybe Herter. But that's a good point that you made. I didn't think about it that way.
I just don't want to lose a player. I mean, like you said, I would see if he could start. I know he had some problems defensively last year, but some of that is scheme. You know what I'm saying? You got to do a better job. The Kings were not a big zone team last year. They need to play more zone. The best teams in the league are playing zone. The Warriors played more zone last year. The Miami Heat plays a tough zone. Why aren't the Kings playing zone? You can hide some of these guys who are not great defenders.
That's a good point, man. Got Frank Redman in the dungeon. Sacramento legend, Sacramento staple is in the dungeon.
That's
man.
Weird you said that, to be honest with you. But I'll take it.
It is, man. It's in the chat. People, when they talk about it, we was all listening back then, man. I got a question real quick about, your time and just seeing the Kings and seeing this franchise kind of evolve from, when you started off in media and being out at Arco Arena and now, to the point where they're at the Golden One Center and the fan base and they got Light the Beam and all this other stuff. It just seeing, and it kind of comes on the heels of, Gilbert Arenas making his comments and all this other stuff. Seeing the franchise in the city grow in the time that you kind of started in this business. Just if you can talk about that a little bit, to give people the insight of what it used to be and where we're at right now.
You know what? When you reached out to me today, I started thinking about your show. You and D-Lo's show. And just kind of the migration of the fan base, of the personalities. Sacramento is knocking on that big city door. And, I interviewed Gilbert before, and I'm happy that he came on show back in the day. But that statement is not going to live well. He's gonna regret that. And maybe if he thought he was being funny, maybe to some people it was funny. It wasn't funny to me. And the irony is, if the Sacramento Kings reached out to him and said, "Hey, Gilbert, we want to make you, the director of personnel training," you think his tune would change a little bit then?
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? So, hey, man, Sacramento is a big time city. If they get another professional team, look out. But when you look at the Golden One Arena is one of the best arenas in the NBA. Right. It really is. So to see people packing that joint, to see multiple voices in the city talking about sports that they have now, I thought it was ridiculous. But, Gilbert's show is kind of kind of shocky. You know, they look for shock stuff, and
it's kind of off the cuff too. They just kind of
yeah,
say
yeah,
whatever, and there's a level of that I appreciate, as
yeah,
opposed to like some shows that are cookie cutter. This is how we got to say
yeah,
it. We
yeah,
got to say things a
yeah.
certain way. Like
Right, exactly.
he talks on air like we might talk off air. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I do
exactly.
appreciate that to a certain degree.
Yeah,
I
so
completely disagree with him, but
right.
I do appreciate that aspect.
Yeah, no, and again, I watch all the shows. I listen to it as much as I can, and that's kind of what his show is.
Mhm.
But for the people who might have felt away, I'm like, don't even trip off that. Just go out there, live your best life and enjoy your team. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because I know the city, I know the loyalty that they have, and it's a big time city, man. It really is.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Frank Red in the dungeon, and I couldn't have Frank on here and not talk some hip hop. I couldn't do that. We gonna talk a little hip hop right now. Then obviously 2024, one of the biggest moments in hip hop history. Kendrick Lamar versus Drake.
Right.
The beef that they had. Frank, I'm the type I like. They always pick a side. Or I like both of these dudes, man. I think these guys are unbelievably talented. I think there's a reason why this was such a big deal, because these are two of the biggest hip hop artists the genre's ever seen. You know, I mean, these are when you talk about like we'll use it in a sports sense. These were two Hall of Famers.
No
This was
question.
this wasn't no just kind of random guy going around. These are two titans that have their own era. You know what I'm saying? Going at it. And I thought they both delivered. Kendrick delivered a little bit more because he ended up being the victor in this situation. But I don't sneeze on how Drake performed in this beef. I thought Family Matters was fantastic. I thought he bodied it, but it wasn't enough to beat a savant like Kendrick Lamar. Just your thoughts, man, on how that all played out.
I'm right with you. Kendrick is the highest of the high. I mean, he's among the all-time greats in terms of talents, lyricists, artists, so on and so forth. And Drake is in another category by himself. Nobody has ever done what Drake has done in his career. And you could like Drake or not like Drake, but you can't marvel at what he's done. Now, with regards to this battle, like you said, neither one of them lost any fans. I was surprised that Drake was able to produce the way that he did, because some of those joints that he put out there were bangers. And quietly, I'm sure Kendrick was like, whoa, I didn't know he had that in him. Now, not like us, that kind of became a movement. I actually like Euphoria better. Yeah.
Euphoria
Yeah.
is fire. That's all time.
I mean, that's my East Coast ear, I think. I mean, just like like a Big Daddy Kane, a Cool G Rap, or something like that, just spitting fire after every bar. I enjoyed it. It seems like the adults in the room made sure that they kept it. I was going to say on wax, but there's no more wax, if you will. But you know what? They kept it business. No one's talking about it, but the amount of business that has been done from this is extraordinary.
Right.
And, it's been inspiring also, too, because we're in an era in 2024 where there's a lot of music out there from young artists and older artists. So I think these two guys are inspiring each other. I want to see what Drake is going to do next. Hopefully he's going to come out with something that's really, really good, and we can keep this going.
Yeah, no, for sure. I saw a clip from Vince Staples. I think in the midst of all this going on, and he was talking about they said, Vince, what you think about the beef or whatever, everything that's going on, the battle and all this other stuff. He said, you don't want to know what I think about it. And he said, they're like, no, Vince, tell us what it is. He's like, all right, I'll tell you what I think about it. I think that he went into this whole diatribe like Taylor Swift is out there making sure that she's getting paid adequately as an artist, and the people behind her are getting paid a certain way, and they're not getting taken advantage of by these labels, and they're doing that and this and that and this and that, and we up here celebrating these two guys who are in the same messed up situation contractually as everybody else. He said, I'd probably want not to put a wet blanket on everything, but I'd probably want them to focus their energy more on making sure these artists get the the right percentages from their music as opposed to diss tracks. He said, that's just me. And I was like, dang, I never thought about it that way. And it came to my mind when you said the business that these guys have generated. I hope that they're getting some of the fruits of the benefits or the business that they generated, because for the music companies and everything else like that, oh, this was a big business situation. They don't care who won. They just know that the money was rolling in over the past 2-3 months.
That's a great point, and it's so true. I put music out. Why? Because it's fun. Because I love it. I don't make any money off my music, and most people don't make any money off their music. If I had a machine behind me and marketing, yeah, I make some money because my music is good. But yeah, you're right. These are two artists who, in general terms, yeah, they're well paid. But what's behind them? That machine is really going to the bank. So Vince Staples was dropping some science, and hopefully, I don't care how old you are, hopefully people out there listening to those types of conversations, because that's really what it's all about. There's a lot of money to be made, but who's making it? Those are some of the questions that need to be answered.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. Frank, man, I appreciate you taking the time, man. I hit you up on a whim this morning, man. Like, hey, you got time to, come through, man. And you said say less, man, in a heartbeat, and pulled up on me. And like I said, I've been a big fan of you, a big fan of yours for a very, very long time. So the fact that you didn't hesitate to come have this conversation, man, I appreciate that. And you still doing your thing, man. Where can people find the podcast and find the things that you got to say still?
Well, I'm on YouTube. You can hit me up at inthedungeon.com. And a lot of people get tripped up by the spelling, but it's not that hard. It's ENTHA, the word dungeon show on YouTube. You'll go right to me. We still got the Sunday night thing going. We kind of got some rhythm now. Nice. I would say follow me on X at Big Frank Red. Let's try to run these numbers up to get some more viewers. But all my shows are really high content, fast paced. I'm always prepared. I'm passionate about what I do. And I love to hear people bring new ideas and contribute to what I'm doing. So that's what it is. I thank you for the opportunity. Don't ever hesitate to reach out, and just continued success for you, man. I love it. I can't wait to see what you do in the future. You and Adilo got something great happening now. Continued success, and thank you for the opportunity.
My man. We gotta. I think it's been like a year plus since you came on. We gotta.
Yeah.
It's gotta happen sooner next time, man. We gotta get Frank on the show a little bit sooner and work the schedules, man, for sure.
All right, brother.
All right, man. Take care. Frank Red
Peace.
in the dungeon. The Sacramento legend, man.